Welcome back to the Myth series in depth. Here we are with Myth 3 The Wolf Age, which is actually a pretty decent game, but was haunted by lots of issues that kept it from becoming the game it could have been. I will tell you all about how this game came to be, how you can get this game, the public reception for the game, and how the game did well, things it didn't do well at, and then we will cover the intro for the manual and the intro cutscene for the game. We won't actually get to the first mission until next time. Before we get into how the game came to be, let's get you hyped with the Myth 3 trailer and also the E3 promotional trailer.
In a time long past, 1,000 years before the armies of the light and dark raged over the world of myth, there was only darkness. From this darkness, a hero appeared who would bring a new age to the world. The Wolf Age.
You lose to them because you are fearful of them. The Mircredia can smell your fear, and they will kill you for it. You must not feel fear. You have made yourself soft. True battle is bloody and knows no rules. You have forgotten what it is like to have to survive. Each day of your life you must fight against death. Cowards are those who fear for their lives. When the devils stare into your eyes, show them only your rage and your hate. Make them know that it is they who should be fearful of you.
Now some of you might be wondering what the heck happened that caused Bungie to sell Myth to Take-Two in the first place. A lot of you probably know about the incident that Bungie had with the Myth 2 Soulblighter, where they had to recall all of their copies that were being sent to store shelves. This was because the game had a bug in the install that could potentially cause the entire hard drive to be erased when uninstalling the game. Bungie cared a lot about their fans and their image, so they decided to recall all of the games and replace them with new discs that would not erase people's hard drives. This was an awesome move by Bungie, but unfortunately it did have some consequences that would greatly challenge the future of the company. This error cost Bungie roughly $800,000, and they weren't exactly rolling in cash at the time. Bungie was still a small company on the rise and needed help, so they sold almost 20% of their company to Take-Two Interactive. Shortly after that, Microsoft bought Bungie, and Take-Two ended up getting the rights to Myth, allowing them to make Myth 3 The Wolf Age. They also got the rights to Oni, which was currently in development by Bungie West. For whatever reason, the development cycle for Myth 3 The Wolf Age was a very short 10 months. I am not sure why it was such a short cycle, but as we will see, that caused a lot of problems with the game. The Myth 3 engine was developed simultaneously with the levels for the game because of the short cycle. In fact, the engine is mostly a modified version of the Myth 2 engine and allowed for the 3D models and such. The story for the game was written by Scott Campbell, who is most well known for being a big part of the story writing at Interplay for the Fallout and Fallout 2 games. He is currently a co-founder at White Moon Dreams. I found a design document for the game that looks like it was the original story that was pitched to Take-Two by Campbell before the development of the game began. You can tell that basically all the journals, videos, and lore for the game were basically all written at the same time. Take a look at what it says in the intro for this document to give you an idea of what their vision of the game was. This expansive document is our complete design proposal for Myth 3: The Wolf Age. This is not intended to be a technical design document, simply a concise breakdown of our vision of the project. Within, we have included a complete game story, a detailed description of each of the game's 25 missions, verbose lists of the 45 unit types used in the game, specific information of the magical items and abilities used in the game, and the types of net games Myth 3 will support. Myth 3: The Wolf Age is a precursor to the two original Myth games. It takes place 1,000 years before the start of Myth: The Fallen Lords and followed the life of Connacht, the legendary hero who saved humanity from the insidious Macridia and the oppressive Trow, eventually becoming the emperor of all human lands. The biggest challenge set before us while designing this prequel was the immense information given about the past history of the world from Myth 1 and 2. The world's past plays an important part in the first two games. It sets the stage for the Great War and the motivations of the race and characters living in the world. This prequel gives us a chance to see the great battles and the history that shaped the world of Myth into what it became in the first two games. We have painstakingly researched the history of the Myth world, from dozens of fan sites to the manuals and strategy guides, to published role-playing games to rare Myth comic books. The information gathered was not always consistent between all sources, so we decided to use the flavor text and manuals from the original game as the true source, while incorporating these stories that fit within Bungie's original concept of the world. After looking over the story we made, we believed that we not only made a concept that can withstand even the most critical Myth fans, but also a game as entertaining and deep as the first two Myth games. What Myth fan wouldn't want to play Soulblighter as a good guy, or Ravana or Mildred before they became the Fallen Lords? Who wouldn't want to single-handedly imprison the Macridia into the Tane and level the great iron temples of the Trow? And more so, who wouldn't want to command Connacht the Wolf, a hero so great they named a whole age after him? Now that is a pretty cool pitch, huh? I appreciate Scott for doing his best to fit the game into the lore of the Bungie games. When you start playing the game, you will notice that the journal entries for Myth 3 actually have years as part of their dates. This actually makes a big difference in the story, as the journals span over approximately 14 years in the game versus less than a year in the first two games. Myth 3 was MumboJumbo's first game, so I get the impression that Take-Two helped put together MumboJumbo specifically to make this game. I'm not sure of the details, but based on the short development cycle and putting a new team together, it gives the impression that Take-Two was out for a cash grab, but maybe there is more to it than that. A few of the members of the Myth 3 development team were also part of the Vista Cartel map-making group that made plugins for Myth 2, such as Jin. Specifically, Paul Callender, aka Fish, Richard Calgill, also called Iggy Pooped, and Craig Goodman, who went by Santa's Head. If you want to play the game, you can find copies of the game around online, but as with the Bungie Myth games, there is currently no online store that sells the game. While not technically legal, you can find free copies of the game on such sites as myabandonware.com. I am personally not a fan of downloading games for free, but seeing how old this game is and that Take-Two really doesn't offer us a way to buy the game that brings them profit, I don't think it is a very big deal unless that changes in the future. Now, the original game upon release had a lot of bugs and was virtually unplayable on some systems, so I would highly recommend you download the current patch to get the game working properly. The MumboJumbo staff who developed the game was mostly disbanded after the release of the game, so they were unable to patch the game properly after releasing it. Thus, all patches for the game were developed by the community. The most current patch was released by a community group called Flying Flip, which has since disbanded. Once you install the game, the most likely issue you will have is with the cutscenes not playing or playing very poorly on Windows. I don't have a Mac, so I can't help you too much with that. best way to fix this issue is to install QuickTime on your computer. You can also download the cutscenes from the chain if you like. In the game, there are actually several spots where there is more story thrown in on top of the journal entries. They are very similar to the journals, but are not actually journals, and they are an important part of the story. These actually don't exist on the Myth.Bungie website, so if you only read the journals on there, you are missing bits and pieces of the story. There's also a plugin for Myth 2 that basically ports the game over. However, this is also missing the same pieces of the story. The public reception for this game was fairly good overall, but overall fans didn't feel that it held up to the Bungie Myth games. I, for one, was not able to play the game when I first got it as a kid, because the game was not well optimized and had plenty of bugs that kept me from enjoying it. As a kid, I wasn't very well equipped at figuring out how to get past these technical issues, and I am sure there are a lot of other people that felt the same way. Myth 3 does hold up very well to the lore of the original games. There are a few conflicts that you can find, but most of the fanbase's perceived conflicts are not really conflicts when you dig into the game more, and can be explained away. Some fans don't like the story because it is not that original when you consider a lot of the story is already told within the Myth.Bungie games. The other thing some fans don't like about the game is that it doesn't leave as much stuff up to mystery as the original Bungie games. Perhaps it is better to leave some of the questions unsolved as they bring about interesting discussions. I personally like the way the story is written, as it has the feel of being its own game while at the same time holding true to the original story. But I also understand where the critics are coming from. Considering the short time frame the game was developed in, and the time that it came out, it does look pretty good. There are some models that could have used quite a bit more work. One of the most noticeable ones is the Macridia, which is kind of odd considering they are supposed to be one of the most iconic enemies in the game. I like the way the Macridia giants look though. Again, a lot of this could probably be explained by the short development cycle for the game. The gameplay in the game is pretty good and plays very similar to the Myth.Bungie games. They have a lot more spellcasters and special units in this game that makes the missions feel fresh and unique. The gameplay can also be a big letdown because the game is not very well balanced. In fact, the first mission on Legendary is one of the hardest missions in the game to get no casualties on. You will have to go cheese the game pretty hard in order to complete it. In addition, this game has no pausing while you are moving your units, so this can make the game extremely frustrating and you can end up leaving the game feeling cheated. When you compare this to the superb level design of the Bungie Myth games, this can be a major letdown. Again, I think the development team would have made the levels much more enjoyable if they had more time during the development cycle. The game does have a couple cheats that are basically the same cheats as for the Myth.Bungie games. If you hold shift while you click new game, you will be able to select any mission in the game. Also, during a mission, if you hold Control Shift Plus all at the same time, you will instantly win the mission. And you guessed it, holding Control Shift and minus will cause you to instantly lose the mission. Now that we talked quite a bit about the game background and whatnot, we are ready to start talking about the story for the game. We will start off by reading the prologue from the Myth 3 manual. The prologue takes place in the future, probably some time after Myth 2 Soulblighter. It tells us the story about a journeyman who is searching through the ruins of Mirthemne. Nothing but dirt. Weeks have I spent at this site, digging into the dirt with my calloused and cracked hands, and for my troubles, I have naught but dirt. Dirt on my clothes, in my eyes, filling my tent. The dry winds carry it in clouds as thick as it lies on the ground. I have had little taste in my mouth save the accursed dirt for days now. Though I do know the healing ways to sustain myself, I fear that even I will not be able to last much longer in this wasteless, sand-blasted desert. The winds are blowing out my candles now. I have finished my writing for today. The ruins that tower about my campsite sheltered me from the brunt of the sandstorm last night. I am thankful that even if they do not reveal their secrets to me, they have at least made it bearable to dwell in their presence. In the heat of midday, I scaled a nearby dune, and at its top I looked in the broken desert about me. The crumbling walls of the arches of the ancient city stand as remnants of incredible disaster. But looking through this veil, I began to gain a sense of the great city that once stood here. For as far as my eyes could pierce through the desert day, the ruins of the great city of Mirthamni stood about me, and I was humbled in the presence of such magnificent glory of forgotten ages. I now understand how the Huron Guard of the Cathbrug could be so distraught at seeing their beloved city destroyed by Balor and the Fallen Lords. Though this atrocity is almost 2 centuries past, many still wear the robes of the journeyman as I do. I do aspire to be counted among the ranks of the Huron Guard someday, but for now I am contented with aiding the needy and uncovering our ancient past. Oh, how we have fallen. The knowledge of our very history is lost to us, buried under the mountains of shifting sands. Still, my shovel has uncovered nothing this day, yet I still dig. Light of the word, this day has been portentous. Where do I begin? It was morning when I had seized a few small eggs from the rock lizards near the crack of the ancient walls. Looking for a shady spot for my meal, I found a darkened cliff face nearby. As I approached, I began to notice something odd. The windstorms of the previous nights had eroded the cliff drastically since it had last made my notice. And now, as I scrutinized, I saw a perfect vertical seam running through its face. It took me no time to gather my equipment and return. With chisels and great shovelfuls of dirt, I slowly uncovered the miracle. It was a doorway. A doorway set into a cliffside that was not truly a cliff. The tons of rock and soil were covering a large structure of some sort, and with the blessings of fate, this portal had been exposed for me to find. My excitement knew no bounds. My imagination cannot be quelled. At first light, I will try to open this door into the forgotten past. It has been several days of feverish excavation. It appears I have underestimated the size of the doorway. It is 3 times the height of a man and nearly the same dimensions wide. I have moved a literal mountain of dirt from them, and yet their base appears to be still deeper into the earth. Just as the orange blaze of the horizons slowly gave way to star-filled night, my shovel hit rock. Finally, I reached the base of the portal. Over a fathom of soil have I uncovered to reach it. I think of the terrible magics that were called upon to bury this city, and I shudder. I have bent 2 chisels attempting to part the doors, even a crack. I fear that I may run out of equipment before I get this thing opened. The only good news I have this day is that the howling winds have abated. What horrors have been visited upon me? I cannot conceive what I have witnessed. Word, protect me. I have moved my meager encampment to the base of the doorway. I fear this is what has angered the thing. It was late day when I felt the devil breeze begin to blow. Strong it grew, and I had to cover my nose and mouth to breathe. The wind battered me like hammers and sucked the breath out of my lungs. As I rushed away from the rock, I felt the wind abate. It was then that I caught a glimpse of the thing. As the funnel of dust moved within the sinuous spirals, I saw lurking within its depths a shadow of a human form. It remained motionless as the column of dust spun about it. The white embers of the eyes stared directly at me as a rattling cry howled out over the wind. After that, I can only recall running from the place. I returned to my encampment today. Having spent another restless night in the open desert, I found my resolve. The thing that met my intrusion was undoubtedly a guardian spirit. I remember hearing tales of ancient sorceries that would bind a spirit to the very mortar of a place, forcing it into servitude for 1001 years. I have returned to the doorway. I had hoped it had gone, but as I approached, the funnel of dirt spiraled back into fearsome shape. I again retreated to my campsite. I must think of how to rid this place of such a thing. I believe the lack of water has beetled me somewhat. I now know what I must do. I have no malice in my heart. If the creature at the portal is indeed a guardian spirit, and not some horror of the atrocities committed here, it would only attack if it sensed malice. I can think of dozens of reasons why this line of thinking is flawed, yet somehow I feel this is correct. I fear if that I were to leave to gather aid from my distant comrades, the spot would again be covered by the shifting desert sands. I cannot allow that. If I am to die, I have lived a good scholarly life. I will leave this journal behind in hopes that someone may find it if I have failed. Great word in all his glory, the discovery that I have found. The secrets and mysteries of the ages have been rediscovered. I must get back to the Citadel and tell others of this. I have made what notes I could, but there is information here that will fill entire volumes of books. I will try to write down what has occurred to me in the last few hours as accurately as I can with my trembling hands. I walked to the stone entrance and confronted the Guardian. As I approached, it rose from the sands like a serpent. Each step I took towards the doors, the stronger it became. Its winds buffeted me and forced me to my knees, but still I crawled. I heard a voice like dry leaves whisper of horrors that would befall me if I did not flee. It was only the powers of word that gathered me the will to continue. I stretched out a flailing hand and touched it upon the stone door. In almost an instant, the fell winds stopped. I heard the hiss of sand falling onto the ground. Crouching and working sand from my eyes, I saw that the Guardian had left me. As I tried to stand, a great rumbling shook the earth. The doors of the ancient building had begun to open. Sand ran in seams down the face of the cliff and into the yawning darkness of the portal before me. With a great thunder, the tremendous door grinded to a halt. Beyond was only darkness. Even the bright light of the desert day could not penetrate into the black opening. Fetching a dry log from my campsite, I wrapped an oily rag around it to make a primitive torch. At the precipice of the doorway, my flame revealed a long room filled with long pillars. The long hallway danced in the orange light of the torch as I began my exploration. The building appeared to be a temple or shrine of some sort. The cataclysm which ended Mirthemni had extracted its tolls on the building. Many pillars were toppled and areas of the ceiling shattered by the rock above. Who or what this temple was dedicated to was still unclear. As I walked along the dirt covering the floor, I spied a shallow oil basin or brazier against the wall. Hoping for some extra light to see by in the cavernous hall, I dipped my torch down and lit the black fluid within. As the oil basin flamed to life, a rivulet of fire trickled down the wall behind it. Fearful that the stone basin was cracked, I moved to extinguish the flame when I noticed that the flaming oil reservoir was carved into the wall itself. The smokeless flame descended to the edge of the floor and continued its flow away from me, carried by a thin trowel built into the wall. Amazed as I was, I did not hesitate to follow the moving flame. The flame was leading me deeper into the structure. Ducking past a fallen pillar, I turned into a vast opening. The whole of the cavern was darkness. Even the torch I carried did not give light to the immense expanse. The oil flame that darted into the room and began to spread. To my amazement, the flames began to crawl up the walls of the chamber in fabulous intertwining, flickering lines of light. As I followed the flaming trails, I was stunned at what I was seeing. A mural drawn of fire. Gold inlays caught and reflected the orange light as the flames illuminated scenes from the long-forgotten past of our world. Heroic spearmen battling against furred monstrosities that could only be the vile Macridia. Massive trow wearing suits of armor attacking castle walls. A cloaked villain directing shambling forms towards soldiers. All this and more was depicted in the splendid luminance. As I stood in awe of the incredible fiery arabesques, I began to notice the room becoming brighter. The flames had lit small braziers inset upon massive stone pillars, disappearing into the still darkness of the towering ceiling. I gazed down at the tile under my feet. Beautiful mosaics ran the length of the floor, showing stars and strange writings. Walking deeper into the still brightening chamber, I began to see the tiled pattern that I trod upon, and realized the purpose of this temple. Under my feet, a brilliant comet was depicted, its frozen white flames glittering on its blue canvas of night. This was the aperture, the celestial occurrence that happens only once in a millennia. As this revelation exploded into my thoughts, a great light began to shine. Great mirrors had gathered the flame's light and focused it into the golden globe suspended at the far end of the shrine. Beneath the fiery globe towered a statue 10 times as tall as a man. A crown rested upon his brow, his hands upon the haft of a mighty axe. His shadow eyes were stern, but I could not help but sense sorrow deep within them. I was standing in the shrine to the greatest emperor of the Cathbrug, the greatest hero to ever live. He who saved humanity from utter destruction over 1,000 years ago. He who slew the nightmare Macridia and crushed the iron temples of the Trow. He who defeated the dark sorcerer Moagim and brought an end to the Wind Age. I had found the shrine of Connacht the Wolf. It took several hours of exploration, but I have uncovered a stone vault lined within the rows and rows of scrolls held on dry wooden racks. These scrolls hold the sacred accounts of Connacht's life. Undoubtedly, these have only been seen by the clerics who worshipped at the shrine so very long ago. I plan to carry these scrolls back to the Huron Citadel. With their deciphering, the long-lost histories of our world might once again be revealed. The journeyman in the prologue has the gold tiles in a cutscene I will show you in a minute, suggesting that this occurred before Mythemne was retaken by Ulrich. However, it also says that he aspires to one day be a Huron guard, and that it is 2 centuries past Balor. This doesn't make any sense because the journeymen were Huron guards, and they only carried the gold tiles until Ulrich recaptured Mythemne. The only reason I think he is a journeyman though is because of the intro cutscene for the game that shows the journeyman inside the temple. I will show you the cutscene, but the cutscene also doesn't show a crown on Connacht as the prologue states. I guess we could say that the intro cutscene just didn't get all the facts straight. I can't recall any elemental type spirits that protect anything in the Myth Bungie games. There are the Stygian Knights and the Maher, but these spirits seem quite a bit different than the one in this prologue. If you have any more thoughts or questions about the prologue, let me know in the comments.
The Fallen Lords, Balor, Soulblighter, Shiver, the Deceiver. Their names stir in us the most primal of fears. Yet the legends of our forefathers tell a different tale, that these lords of the fallen were not always the terrifying horrors we remember. The ancient city of Mythemne, utterly destroyed by the war with Balor over a century ago, it was buried under a mountain of earth, and its records and knowledge lay entombed beneath the crushing rock. I have spent most of my life delving into these decaying halls and dirt-encrusted chambers, searching for the history of the Cathbrug Empire and the forgotten heritage of my people. And I have found it, a shrine, lying hidden and undisturbed after 100 years of war. Its archaic construction dates back to the last days of the Wind Age. The murals carved into its walls depict scenes from ages past, when terrors, known as Mercridia, hunted humanity like game. When the Trow Empire lusted for their precious iron, breaking the backs of their ogre slaves. When an evil from unfathomable ages trod once again upon the lands of men. The arabesques also show a hero being born under the tail of a flaming comet. And I now realize who is honored in this shrine. Connacht the Wolf, the greatest hero in all legend. He whose deeds had saved humanity and transformed the world. This shrine holds the tale of his life, his battles and his sorrows, and tells of a time long forgotten by modern man. Now, after ages past, the saga can be told anew. The story of Connacht and the coming of the Wolf Age.
That is right, this game will tell the story of Soulblighter, Shiver, and the Deceiver before they become fallen lords. In addition, we will see the story of Connacht and how he became the hero that defeated the Leveler to end the Wind Age and bring about the Wolf Age. We will also see how the Trow used their iron weapons and armor and how they ended up giving it up. There was a lot more unique units in this game as compared to the Myth Bungie games. Get all strapped in, because it is going to be a fun ride. Well, that is it for this video. Stick around and watch this short video that was made by a few members of the MumboJumbo team as they were developing Myth 3 The Wolf Age.
Pisses me off when the commercials are larger than the shows.
It's just another blatant sign of the commercialism of our society. I mean, it's like major motion pictures. I mean, the product placement in that is just obscene.
But you know what really ticks me off though is when I'm trying to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and you know the label on the peanut butter says crunchy. I stick the knife in. What do I get out? Smooth peanut butter. It's obscene. I'm trying to. I can't stand that. Someone ought to go lynch Peter Pan. I swear.
But what really pisses me off? Cell phones. When they're both digital, and all you can hear is wah 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 wah, and the other person on the other end is like yeah wah 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 wah.
Yeah, you know, Charles Schultz actually had it right on the keystroke all along. He knew about that technology long before most people, you know. The government told him.
Charlie Brown really knew it was coming.
You know what really pisses me off, though? When people abduct you from your desk and you're trying to get something decent done and force you to do a movie, man. It happens to me all the time.
Yeah, that's just rude.
Come in!
Hi, I'm Andrew Meggs.
Hi, Andrew.
Would you guys like to play this copy of Half-Life I just ported to the Mac?
Is that legal?
Not anymore.
See you later, Andrew.
Your boss.
You know what really pisses me off?
What's that?
When aliens abduct you and they don't return you in time to put money in the meter. It happened to me last time. Got a parking ticket.
You got a parking ticket?
Yeah.
Oh, why didn't you tell the cops that you got abducted by aliens?
Like they believe me.
But I get abducted by aliens all the time.
Really?
Yeah? What did they tell you when they abducted you?
I said, the same as usual. It'll just take a minute.
Those aliens, they're just so inconsiderate. Did they ask you to try to set them up on a date with, what's her name? Melissa Joan Hart?
Yeah, they did. Like we know her or something. You don't go to Hollywood.
Oh, but they taught you the alien secret handshake, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Really? Here, hold this.
Can you, like, cut that out or something? Am I, like, the only one in the room that hasn't been abducted by aliens?
What, you mean you haven't?